Hello and welcome to another episode of the Unexpected Entrepreneur Podcast. Today we are back with another guest expert, Michelle, and we're going to be talking all about TikTok and showing up on TikTok as a creative. So before we jump into everything, do you want to introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are?
Yes, please. And thank you so much for having me. This is one of my favorite topics, one of my hyperfixations. But my name's Michelle. I am the owner founder of MKW Creative Co, where we build brag-worthy brands for online-minded entrepreneurs. So people who are going to be growing, scaling their brand online, connecting with their community online. I am this person. I am chronically online. So these are my people. And a lot of what we do on our team is make sure that they have the visual identity that reflects their audience, their goals, mission, etc. My kind of come up story, I guess, is that I actually started my business as a 20-year-old between my junior and senior year of college. Very entrepreneurial family who was like, hey, try it. And if you don't like it, like go get a job. Like, who cares, you know? So it was kind of got like a little bit of a kick in the pants, like, yeah, give it a go, you know? I have an art history and fine arts degree. So everything business, marketing, graphic design is totally self-taught. Thank you, YouTube. Thank you, Google. And just kind of was the person that was always saying yes to a project, even if I didn't totally have the experience to do so, and learn on the fly. So that kind of led me down the path of being self-employed for about the first 6 years. So by age 26, 27, I was digital nomading all around the world before COVID, which was crazy. So meeting people from all different countries, all different backgrounds, which was super helpful to me. And then January 2020, I said, I really want to go home back to San Diego, where I'm from, and focus on building my team. Like I was really like hooked on the idea of like, I've got more work than I know what to do with. And then the world shut down, as we know. So it was like great timing for me. I decided to go all in on TikTok. So I had started my TikTok account in July 2019 on a dare for my little sister, who kind of like wanted to get my goat by saying she was going to get more TikTok followers than me than I had on Instagram. And on my Instagram followers, I had like 6,000 at the time or something. And she's like, I bet you I could get more. And I was like, game on, sister. And so it kind of was a slow start. There weren't a lot of people making videos on TikTok in 2019. But by 2020, I had kind of narrowed in on a sequence that was working really well, a series, which is my brand design in 60 seconds videos. And some of those first videos got like 300,000 views out the gate. And so I said, okay, now we're on to something. Like, I know what we're doing here. So the TikTok has been like a steady growth since then. Definitely a bit of a roller coaster, but I love the app because you get to discover people that you otherwise would have never crossed paths with. I think that their algorithm is so smart. And I just enjoy how specific you can get with niche content. So it's great for that, but it's been huge for growing my business. So in that year in 2020, we got 41 brand design clients, and probably 80% of those came from TikTok. And still now, TikTok is one of my top new business inquiry lead generation platforms. So yeah, I love to talk about it.
I feel like that's such a great thing because I feel like everyone kind of resisted TikTok to begin with. I know KP and I, we graduated college in 2020 and we played lacrosse, and all of the underclassmen on the lacrosse team were like obsessed with TikTok, and they'd be, obviously we're looking at the like dancing side of TikTok and all this stuff, and they'd be on like the sidelines in practice doing all these dances, and all of the like seniors were like, what are you doing? Like, what is this? I don't get the point of this. Like, this looks ridiculous. And then obviously like everything got shut down, and KP and I were like, whatever, we'll download TikTok and like we'll see what it's about. And it started that like doom scroll at the beginning, but then I think as KP started the business, it became a thing of, okay, this isn't just to like show funny stuff or do different dances. Like, there's some actual information here. People are looking for things. It's become a thing. Like, I have gone on TikTok and like searched a question that I would normally search on Google to get someone to answer on TikTok and like get the video. So I think it's something that there was a lot of kind of hesitation to lean into it, or like, this isn't me. It's just, a little app for kids or anything like that. Like, it has become this massive marketing channel that is really fun, but also like can sometimes be a little intimidating to try and break into and figure out, where your place is and what you should actually post and what's going to work and everything like that. So I absolutely love this.
I remember going to there was a TikTok conference that was held at their HQ in LA, February 2020, like the first week of February 2020. And I went with a friend of mine, and we were sitting in some of the lectures, and they were talking about some of the creators that were starting to pop off, like
Mhm.
Cosmic Fuss, who makes like the little miniatures, and somebody else who does comedy skits, and somebody else who does like there were really interesting people in the room. And I kind of had raised my hand and I said, is anybody using this like for business though, like to grow their business and like get clients? And it kind of like started all these like little whispers in the room, and like people started like, oh shit, I didn't even think about that. And I had a reporter from the LA Times walk up to me after, and she's like, what did you mean by that? And I was like, let me tell you. And so it's so funny that now, like, what a 180 from that like
Mhm.
every major brand is on TikTok, all the creators are on TikTok, like people are changing their lives by posting
Yeah.
content on this app and going viral and selling out their products and doing cameos, and like there's just so much opportunity there that I think there were so many creatives that felt so stifled by Instagram that it just was the perfect storm.
And I think it was that perfect platform where there might have been that little bit of hesitation at the beginning because new social media platforms pop up all the time and like things just die down. And I feel like when TikTok came out and really started to become what it is today, everyone was like, oh, it's kind of like Vine, and Vine died out. This is just going to die out. Like, I'm not going to put a whole bunch of effort into this to run my business. Like, it's fun to make little, silly videos, but like
Sure.
to run my business, how am I supposed to know if this is actually going to last or if it's going to die out in a year? But I feel like the more steam it picked up as it went, people were like, oh no, this is going to start rivaling like Instagram and, Facebook and all these other social media platforms that we're posting on. Like there are millions of people on here that I can reach if I, can get my content out in front of them. So maybe I should start paying attention over here.
Well, and it's just the same as all of history of marketing, right? Like when a
Hmm.
new technology, a new modality comes out, there's people that are early adopters that get high reward because there was a high concentration of consumers and there wasn't a high concentration of creators at the time. So
Yeah.
you have a lot of demand and not a lot of supply. So you get a lot of opportunity because people are like, okay, what's this person doing, right? But it's the same tenets apply as to print marketing, phone marketing, like yellow pages, like advertising, all of these things, like having a good hook, having a good promise, having a good, service or product that you're offering people, like how you market that, people get, I think, intimidated or discouraged by, oh, I have to learn a new thing. But
Hmm.
if you have the core of your marketing message, it's just about like shimmying that into that shape more than
Yeah.
coming up with something totally new.
No, I love that and I totally agree. And I think if people are like, okay, it's 2024, I feel like I should probably get on this TikTok thing and start posting on TikTok. Where's the best place for them to start if they're finally like, okay, I want to do this? Like, is there a certain amount of I know people are always like, we have to post on there every day or like 3 times a day and do all this stuff. Like, where's a good kind of beginner? Here's what you can do to just get your foot in the door and get started on it.
Yeah, even though we do social media marketing, I'm not someone that's so beholden to these very prescriptive, you must do this to succeed. It's just not true. And it's
Hmm.
also like, it's a very easy idea to sell, right? It's very easy to be like, if you post every day, you'll have massive growth. Like, compared to not posting, yes, like for sure. But also post in a way that works with your lifestyle, that works with your creativity. I'll go through phases where I'll post 9 videos in a row just because I'm in a mood and I'm
Hmm.
like, hey, I'm gonna post all of these right now. And then I'll go 3 weeks and not post anything. So I don't think that there's like a hard and fast rule of like you must do these things to succeed. But when I'm advising someone on starting a TikTok channel for the first time, I want them to experiment with different types of content to see what they like best. So the thing is, you can get pretty far with talking just face to camera. And I think if you're a business
Hmm.
owner, you got to be talking face to camera. If you're going to be talking to clients on the phone, if you're going to be presenting things on video, if you're going to be sending emails, texts, phone calls, anything, talking face to camera, it just gives people that sense of getting to know you without you having to
Hmm.
do that work. So talking face to camera and running through all of your frequently asked questions. So like questions that we get for brand design is how many logos are included? It's like, well, it's only one concept method. How long does it take? What's the investment? What do we do after branding? How do I use my assets? Like, I would run through every single frequently asked question that your business usually gets and just consider your TikTok account as like an encyclopedia of your FAQs. Because then the next time somebody asks you that question, you just send them a video, and then you don't have to write out a long Instagram DM, be like, actually, I made a video on this. Here you go. So it's a time saver in that sense. And I think it's a good way to start by asserting your expertise, to like run through, this is what I do and this is how I know how to do it. And this is what people usually ask me. And here's the answer. Because I think you just cement yourself as an expert in that way. So that would be the first type of content, is just talking face to camera, answering questions. I wouldn't put music on it. I wouldn't try to do any special effects, just straight up. The second type would be green screen. Little more complicated, but having your graphics prepared behind you. Maybe you're walking through a client project, or you're explaining a recent launch or a new product, things like that, and talk through it, or talk to your area of expertise again, so we can still see your face, hear your voice, but we're maybe looking at visuals in the background. And then the third type would be like any kind of day in the life montage style content. I find that day in the life content helps me when I'm feeling stuck creatively, because there's something in my life somebody's interested in, but I may not be seeing it because it's just my life and I do it every day. But, you know, someone might ask like, oh, what podcast are you listening to? You mentioned that you listen to podcasts on your dog walks, you know what I mean? And that could spur off as its own type of content. So I'm always trying to get clients to think about like diversifying the type of content and not worrying about the views, not worrying about the followers, high quality and diverse content, so that you can actually track that stuff and compare it to figure out like, okay, this one seems to be doing well here, I'm going to do more of those.
And I think there's such like importance of showing your face, and especially when we're doing a lot of stuff online. So like now basically everything, you know, we can do an entire project and never meet you. Like we never have to meet up in person. There's no, you know, physical interpersonal connection. So having something where people get to know your personality, they get to know what you like we have so many conversations with people just on travel. Like it has nothing to do with our services. It has nothing to do with anything that we want, but we're able to make those connections with people over travel. And then, you know, if they're like, oh, I actually need this, and I talk to them all the time about all of this, like that, maybe I'll just go to them. Like I think it's underrated, just showing everyday things, or showing the things that you love. It doesn't necessarily always have to be like business 24/7, because also people aren't looking for business 24/7. They're looking for business when they want to, but then they just want to have some sort of connection with people.
Exactly. And I think that the connection really comes through also when you are an active participant on other people's pages. So it's just as important to be doing consistent engagement. So people that complain like, oh my gosh, my videos are tanking or nothing's taking off, blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, did you spend time like actually giving feedback to your community? Did you spend time in the comments section? Did you like go find somebody? Did you start searching the hashtags that are relevant to your niche and being a participant instead of just like waiting for everybody to come to you? You've got to step into the ring a little bit and participate as well.
No, and I also love what you were saying about making videos on FAQs and then being able to send them to clients. Because we talk about this a lot with like blog posts, like writing blog posts on your frequently asked questions, or, you know, your tips for picking venues, or like doing this or that.
Sure.
And when people reach out to you, you're just like, oh, hey, here's a blog post that does all of this. You don't have to sit there and write a response, or, you know, search through your inbox to figure out who the last person you sent that answer to and like find it. But I think people don't necessarily always think about their social media posts and how that can work just the same. And you make it and you're like, oh, here's a video, here's a post, like just go watch this, go look at this. That answers all of your questions. If there's anything else, let me know. Like it's so quick and easy.
Totally.
And anything we can do to get time back in business, I feel like is a winner. So like just something quick. It probably takes maybe 5 minutes to record and upload a question that you answer all the time. And then you're saving how much time down the road. Like it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and you're answering it anyway. Like a good rule of thumb for me is if a client has asked, 3 different clients have asked the same question, I need to make a piece of content about it, because that means more people have the same question. And so often we learn not by exactly Googling what we want to find out, but we learn by watching other people ask questions. And I think that's the whole of social media, right? Like Facebook groups and Instagram comment sections and TikToks and YouTube. Like we're learning by what people are asking that we wouldn't even think to ask. And I think that you can't overlook the fact that there might be somebody who's just looking and not engaging and not liking and not following and not commenting, but they're looking, you know?
Yeah, I think we've kind of run into the idea of there's so many different buyer types and so many different types of people who are going to be looking for different types of things that we can't always be like, oh, it's only the people that are going to engage with us 24/7 and do all of this stuff. Like, no, we're even me and KP, we're very much the silent buyers where we will follow you and not say anything. And then like 8 months later, be like, okay, I'm ready to book. Like no questions asked. I want like sign me up. So I think being able to kind of balance that, making content, putting out marketing, you know, addressing all of the different types of people is really important.
Definitely.
So when we're thinking about TikTok, a lot of the times we think about all of the trends that go on TikTok, and there's a lot of different things that pop up. Some of them are a little bit longer. Some of them last like 24 hours. If we're thinking about content for our business, should we pay attention to any of the trends? Should we jump on any of them? Or should we just kind of focus on putting out stuff that relates to us and our business and kind of those, you know, 3 topics that you talked about as starting out?
I think it depends on where you're at in your journey of sharing on social media. Like if you are like me and you've been sharing about your business on social media for 10 years, I think there's a different level of comfortability with like jumping in on trends and finding things that fit well with the niche. But there's some trends that I would never do. Like I try to stay away from trends that have any kind of like vanity or like overly sexual undertones. That's just not me. It's not who I am. Like, you know, and I'll throw out an F-bomb for sure. But sometimes there's lyrics where I'm like, this is about something else and I don't really need my business mixed up with this. You won't catch me dancing pretty much ever.
Nope.
And as far as other trends go, like I'm looking at trends on TikTok more as like cultural phenomenon in a larger context. So like the coquette trend, loved putting little bows on everything. So we shared like a carousel that was like brands we've designed that feel feminine. Like you can kind of piggyback on it and make it fit your brand. But if you're only ever doing trends, you don't have anything for people to come back to and really sink their teeth into and binge because it's all trendy and it feels very much like you're coming from a reactive social media marketing place instead of proactive. A proactive social media marketing is evergreen content, sharing your case studies, showcasing transformations, sharing behind the scenes, versus trends. I think people get swept up in it thinking that like, oh, I'll post this one video and then therefore my life has changed because I'll go super viral and everything. I know people with hundreds of thousands of followers that literally can't make $1 from their social media. It's a non sequitur to me. It's again, low hanging fruit. It's a dangling carrot and it's a beautiful come up story, but it's happening for 1% of the population. So I just don't think there's enough to bank on trends being like a legitimate social media strategy.
And I love what you said about, you know, picking things that are like, does this feel like it matches my business? And I think looking at a trend and be like, okay, does this match like the values of my business and, you know, what I want to put out there and how I want myself represented? Because I think sometimes we're like, oh, this is really popular. Everyone's searching for it. Like, I just got to do it and like put it out there because maybe I'll get eyes on my content if I do it. But then the flip side of that is it the right eyes that you want on it? Like odds are it's probably not if it's not matching the values of your business. So taking a second to be like, is this actually something that I'm like totally comfortable doing, or am I just doing it because I feel like I should be doing it?
Yeah, and by the time that you feel like you should be doing it, the trend is usually pretty much over. So that's the thing is like, and it's hard because if you're the person that's struggling to get content out in the first place, trends are a really easy distraction. It's a real, oh, well, I can just throw this up and this is what everybody else is doing. I try to encourage people away from that and more towards like, what's your original content? What are your original templates, your original style? Like brand design in 60 seconds videos was because you could only upload a minute of TikTok video at that time. Yeah. I'm like, how the heck am I going to share an entire project in 1 minute? And so I did. I sat there with my phone and it's like shaky camera work and it looks like crap. And it's me with run-on sentences and filler words and pre-CapCut, pre-editing. And I would literally post it raw right out of my literally recording in TikTok app and just post it and just go for it. So I think there's a tendency to think that you have to have all these like bells and whistles to make it legit. And I'm weirdly that way with YouTube. Like I put off like being a YouTube creator for so long. And literally as of last night, I just uploaded like the video concept that I've been thinking about for like 2 years. So, you know, it's everybody's got their things. To me, I think TikTok just feels casual enough that it doesn't need to be so produced. which is a blessing and a curse, because then it's like, oh, well, it's so easy. I could just get it done. And then it's like, oh, it's so easy. I'll do it later.
Yeah. Yeah. But I
You know?
think that is something that's kind of important to think about too, is like people aren't necessarily going on TikTok to find the most polished and professionally
No.
made videos. Like they don't care if your camera's a little shaky. They don't care if you don't have the best lighting. Like they want to know the content. They want to connect with you because of you as a person or you as a business or service provider. Like obviously the majority of us are not going to be like professional filmmakers.
Sure.
We're not trying to be like professional influencers. We're trying to sell our services and sell our business. And, you know, people aren't expecting Hollywood quality from our iPhone camera that we set up in the, you know, $10
Exactly.
Amazon ring light.
Exactly. And in some cases, we found with our clients, like the really glossy videos don't perform because it feels too distant from the viewer. So there's this is where my like fine arts degree finally plays in a little bit. But I was a video major, and we talked a lot about like rupture and distance from screen to screen. So when you're watching something versus when it was filmed, right? If you can cut down on the amount of perceived time between when the thing was filmed and when it was published, it feels more relatable because it feels like I could have filmed it myself on my iPhone, right? So versus something with like a lot of special effects and background music and edits and all these things, those tend to feel more distant because they feel produced. So there's a balance, because I think we should always be like trying to hone our skills and grow our skills. And definitely in my brand design in 60 seconds videos, I just posted the 80-second version of that series. I'm much more clean. I'm much more direct. I'm much more forward. I'm conscious of my filler words. I'm conscious of my framing, but it's still filmed iPhone and voiceover. Not a lot of bells and whistles, nothing crazy. But I'm supporting that with now other types of edits, because now my experiments are kind of more into the produced realm. It's like, okay, let's see how this goes. Like, what does it look like to actually record on a nice camera with lights and everything like that? But now, I'm 10 years in the game. So like, it's appropriate. It's appropriate. When you're just starting and you're just struggling to get those like consistent clients month over month, I don't think that doubling down on creating all this super, super high quality, super glossy content is the best spend of your time.
No, I definitely agree. And I think that, you know, I love the kind of distance from the production, like the recording to the actual release of it, because I feel like that's so true. And I think, you know, like we said, people want that connection. They want to get to know you, not some like super produced version of you.
Right.
And I think that lets people connect with you a little better. And then, like you said, like, you don't necessarily have to go from 0 to 100 with the production quality, but even just as you get more comfortable recording, you're going to use less of those filler words. You're going to like feel like you are more confident when you're explaining something. And like that can alone just make a big difference in how even you perceive like, oh, that was a really good video, or like, that one wasn't great, but I'm going to put it out because I made it. And, you know, I just need to get something out. So I think even just our like internal confidence, I'm like, no, like I can do this. I'm not as uncomfortable. Like, we got this. It'll only take me a couple minutes. We're all good.
And done is better than perfect. It's better to get something out there than nothing. It's better to get something. Even with my team, I tell them we're not shooting for 100%. We're shooting for 80. If it's 80% good, it's good to go. Because that last 20%, first of all, is almost undetectable. It's only going to bother you. Like, I put up this YouTube video and I'm like, man, I should have faded out the music a little bit sooner here and da da da. Like, I'm already finding 14 different ways to critique it. When in reality, like, the person watching it doesn't know that you meant to do it any different. So we have a tendency to be really hard on ourselves where we feel like we're comparing ourselves. And a lot of that comes from seeing what other people are doing or trying to copy them or trying to emulate. And I think the biggest kind of hack or tip that I've gotten is stop following your competitors. Just stop following them. Go follow the people that you can help. Follow the people that you want to work with, and hype them up and be in their comment section and interact with their videos and stitch their videos and make videos for them. Because at the end of the day, there's always going to be people that are doing better than you, and there are always going to be people doing worse than you. So if you're finding that you're feeling like imposter syndrome or overwhelmed by there's so many people in my niche now, or there's too many creators, like I'm never going to be as big as so-and-so, stop looking is the first step. Just stop. There's more than enough opportunity and more than enough jobs for everybody.
I totally agree. This is something that we kind of implemented even just in our like Instagram following of, we were following a lot of other designers, and then it became that comparison game, that what are they doing? What are we doing? Like, do we think they're booking out as far as we are? Like, why can't we do? And I feel like they're up here and we're back here. And like, why are we not up here? And I think you just get into that spiral of always putting yourself up against someone else instead of just letting your business stand on its own. And like you said, there's always going to be people that are doing better than you. There's always going to be people that are doing worse. So instead, just like stay in your own lane, stick to the people that you actually want to work with, because you're never going to work with that other designer. You are a designer. If you're a copywriter, you're never going to work with that other copywriter. If you're a photographer, you're probably never going to work with that other photographer. So you don't need to necessarily worry about what they're doing. Focus on the people that you actually want to book your services.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's something to be said about like making sure that you're consciously spending your time online doing what's going to give you the most return for your time, because it is so easy to get like vacuum sucked into that whole thing, right? Of like doom scrolling and comparison and looking at everybody else's stuff. And that also, that regardless of what you do, when you become good at your craft, you're going to get a split audience anyway. You're going to get an audience of people that want to work with you, and then you're going to get an audience of people that want to do what you do. And there's a lot of designers and a lot of like online service providers that cater a lot to that audience that wants to do what they do, which is great. Like, we need courses, we need YouTube videos. I have a podcast too. Like, I get it. But it's also, you got to make sure that you're coming back to the end of the day. Like, do you have a service that's going to support yourself financially to keep making content for that audience? So if you're only sharing Illustrator tips and you're only sharing logo design hacks and you're only sharing your favorite fonts, that's not as interesting maybe to a potential client. So your inquiries for clients may go down, but you're going to get a whole bunch of DMs of people who are fresh to the scene saying, how do you do what you do? And you have to decide, okay, is that who I want to be serving here? Like, do I have an offer for these people? Do I have a masterclass? Do I have a consulting calendar? And the quickest way to respond to someone who wants to pick your brain over coffee is say, yeah, here's my consulting link. It's $4.50 an hour. And they go, okay, never mind. And you're like, have a good day. So it's like, that's been a very conscious choice on my side, is I get people all the time. Are you hiring? Do you have a course? Da, 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 da. And my pitch kind of with the podcast and the Facebook group, which are very educational based, is that the more I share with my audience is the more that they share with the people that they know. And I want to work for the people that they know. So even if you can't hire me, I will gladly tell you everything that I know. Share it, like tell a friend, like, you know what I mean? Like that's, and always making that crystal clear that that's my goal has been really helpful. And I think some people get lost in that, and then everybody all of a sudden is a coach and an educator, and it's like, well, there's a saying that says those who can't teach, so it's like more power to you, educators. Like, I have so much respect, but you do start to lose the day-to-day if you're not doing the actual work part and you're just full-time educator.
Yeah. We've always looked at, sometimes it's, you got to find the balance of, if you're working with someone or learning from someone, trying to figure out, okay, is this, not saying that it can't be great information, but you also want to make sure that it's up to date and the most relevant for your business. So almost kind of having people who are practicing what they preach. And, we know a lot of people who kind of do both. We have, some kind of education side to our stuff, but then like most of the stuff is service.
Right. When you're an expert, there should be, right? Like, when you're an expert, like during the pandemic, like I hosted a bunch of Kiss My Portfolio challenges, which help designers design brands that they'd be proud to have in their portfolio. Because a lot of times when you're starting out, you work on projects that you don't like, and you work for clients that you don't like, and you have a bunch of portfolio work that you're like, this isn't actually my style at all. Like, I felt kind of bullied into doing something that the client needed and not really what I want to be doing. And so that's what the Kiss My Portfolio challenge was for. So definitely, like, this wasn't meant to be like a poo-poo on educational things, but no,
not at all.
I think that there's a balance, right? So it's easy to go for the low-hanging fruit. It's harder to stick to your guns, but when you stick to your guns, like, you get that back tenfold, because you're serving, at the end of the day, serve the client the best. And if somebody else benefits by watching it, or somebody else benefits by watching my TikTok live when I'm doing a logo design, awesome. But at the end of the day, I'm here to do the best job on behalf of the client.
And I think it's also an important thing to talk about too, because you also want to make sure that you're not getting like forced or sucked into something that you don't want to do. Like if you start to put out more educational stuff and that starts to get bigger, you're like, okay, great. You might have to make a conscious decision. Like, do I actually like doing this educational stuff, or do I feel like I just have to do it because right now this isn't doing so hot and, you know, I could use the money? And then being like, okay, is it actually not doing hot because I'm putting out all of this content that has nothing to do with the clients that I actually want to book? Like, I feel like there's a balance, and it's something that you really have to think about and consider, and not kind of let yourself get pulled into it if that's not really the direction that you want to go.
I mean, it's the idea. Would you rather make $10 from 100 people or $100 from 10 people?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same amount of money, but it's the hell of a lot less work, in my opinion. Unless really, like, you're selling something that's totally downloadable and very hands off. But passive income, I feel like, was such a buzzword for so long, and like building a business so that you don't have to work and you make money in your sleep. Like, it's very, in my opinion, predatory on the entrepreneurship space, and I think it's why a lot of people who are graduating and like younger and like just coming out of college, like they are so enthusiastic to make money online, and they should be.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what's getting lost in that is the actual reality of it.
Yeah.
And that just because someone has a $700,000 launch does not mean that they took home $700,000. They may have spent $500,000 on ads, and another $100,000 on staff, and another $100,000 on their marketing. So like, it's like, okay, to do all that work to only take home like a seventh of the pay, it's wild to me. So, you know, it's different strokes for different folks, but I think that if you're going to go down the education route, like, again, to circle it back to the TikTok conversation, you can totally be an educator on TikTok. Like, there's so much room for education and entertainment. And like, a lot of what I do is education based. Like, a lot of what I share is education based, but it's also for a purpose, and it's educating the audience that I want to work with. And so I think that's different versus just educating everyone, or trying to educate everyone, or trying to educate the people that do what you do. If you train the people how to do what you do, you're creating more competitors for yourself. And I think people forgot that, but okay.
No, I definitely think, you know, putting out education, but then being intentional about who you are putting it out for, and making sure that it kind of relates to what you want to push, who you want to work with, the goal for your business, and not just feeling like, oh, I just have to put this out and like maybe this is what's going to work. So I think that's definitely something that's important to consider. And I think a lot of people can kind of fall into those traps of like, oh, maybe I can just do this. And then you're like, oh, this is actually a lot of upfront work, and I'm spending a lot of time doing this. And like, this isn't as passive as people say it is. Like, passive income is not totally passive. You put in a lot of work to build it up to the point where you can then launch it and hope that people do it. And then you're continually marketing it. Like, it's not a let it sit and it's just going to happen. So I think being intentional about the education is a great point. And going back to kind of some of your growth on TikTok and how you kind of started out, was there anything that you kind of learned or that made it easier or more comfortable for you to show up so well on TikTok?
Live streaming was really fun. So you can live stream once you hit 1,000 followers on TikTok. And I had already been doing like Instagram lives for a few years at that point. So I was pretty comfortable with the live stream idea. But for me, it's just setting my phone up on a tripod when I'm designing logos, and just letting people in on the process, letting people know that that's what I'm doing. And it's kind of one of these like co-worky, some people say it's their ASMR, some people say it's like, but it's a way to just kind of peek in. And I kind of liken it to when you walk by a bakery and you see somebody like rolling fresh croissants, it makes you want the croissant because you're seeing how it's being made, you're watching it, you're like, okay, I'm intrigued, like now I need to try the goods, right? So the live streaming has been really great. But as far as posting on TikTok and the consistency of it, I'm really like all over the map, but having my series that I continue to come back to is really useful. So having something that, you know, works, making sure that it sticks in a playlist, it's a series, you can go binge it, that there's some consistency to that. And then having what we're doing now on my team is coming up with an SOP for how we share projects once they're finished. So once we finish with a client, one of our major goals is to have them on the podcast, because then that becomes like the long form testimonial of the case study of their project. Who are you? Why did you start? What did we accomplish? What have you done since? Blah, 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 blah. What did you think of the process? What surprised you? Like, it's just such a good sales material in the first place. So that's the long form content piece number one. long form content piece number 2 is going to be the case study walkthrough of the whole project start to finish. So that's the content that I just posted on the YouTube channel. And that's going to be really the piece that also lives in the website on each portfolio page. So if you're struggling to get clients, it's probably because your portfolio isn't painting the picture of what it's like to work with you. It's one thing to show super glossy images. It's something else to talk about, here was the client, here's what they brought to the table, here's how we expanded on that, challenged them, presented a different idea, here's how all those ideas came together. So that long form piece. And then once we have those 2 long form pieces, we can cut that into a million different things. So that can get chopped down for reels. It can get chopped down for TikToks. We're taking the same topic, we're sharing it as carousels. And we try to get really granular with the process. And what we've been doing now on social is what we kind of call like a content flood. So similar to how a brand, when they launch a new product, like let's say like Poppy Soda, for example, they're launching a new flavor, they're going to spend like at least 2 weeks talking just about that flavor and nothing else. They're going to tease it. They're going to make you guess. They're going to give you clues. They're going to reveal it. And then they're going to tell you to shop it for like 2 solid weeks. And their whole feed is just filled with only that one singular marketing message. And so we've adopted that now for our portfolio projects, and it works really well because it allows it so that even if our engagement is down, or even if like people aren't seeing 100% of what we post, if you come back to our profile, you can tell that there's full chunks of the feed on TikTok or Instagram that's just dedicated to this one banger of a project. And I think that gives it just a little more staying power than what we were doing before, which is like the day that it comes out, we're like, oh, and here's work we did, bye. And just like, it was like not enough. And people like different types of content. So it's fun to experiment with that. I always try to create some kind of educational piece or about a new tool or new technology that we used or strategy or like one that I'm working on right now is like signs it's time to invest in a personal brand as a creator. So we just finished like Morgan Drinks Coffee, like her branding. Great example. That's a first case study, but I also did Lindsay Silberman and Jet Set Christina and Girl Gone Abroad and Joe Johnson Overby. So we've got a lot of these in our portfolio that I haven't talked about in a while. So I'm using the topic to stir up more examples of case studies and more examples of past work. But that's been really helpful, is kind of just like spending a concentrated amount of time on one message instead of trying to tell your audience about 40 different things all out at the same time.
No, I totally agree. And I love what you said about bringing back content to like kind of make it full circle, bring it back to people's attention, because I think a lot of times we're like, oh, we've posted that, like people don't want to see it again. Well, first of all, you're following like week to week, month to month is probably going to look very different. New people are going to follow you. People might not see a post. I know Instagram's like all over the place lately with like if posts are actually showing up on your feed or having the new like sponsored stuff. And like there's all these questions. So odds are everyone isn't going to see every single thing that you publish, that you upload, that you post. So there's nothing wrong with like bringing it back and being like, hey, don't forget about this. This was great. This was a great client I worked with, or a couple I worked with, or project I did, or whatever it is. And like, here's why it matters. Here's, how we can do the same thing for you, or whatever it might be, like bringing that kind of full circle. And I also loved what you said about doing the kind of like collections of things on TikTok, because I think, even me personally, I fall into the like part 1, part 2, part 3, like it keeps you interested and you like click on the page and then you go try and find the second part or the third part or whatever it is. And it's that anything that we can do to keep people scrolling on our own content is going to be beneficial for us. So I think that's good to come up with. It doesn't have to be like overly elaborate, but just come up with some sort of series that you can put on there that people can, binge and keep coming back to and see more examples of is a really great idea.
And everyone learns differently. So some people might resonate more with a video. Some people would prefer a carousel. Some people want to just see pretty visuals. Some people want you to explain the brass tacks of exactly how the thing gets done. So this, again, like the marketing, the singular marketing message, let's say you're recapping a client project, or you are launching a course or worksheet or workshop or whatever, like find all the different ways you can talk about that thing in different modes, right? So how you say it on stories might be different. How you say it on TikTok might be different. How you post about it in your Facebook group, etc. But that's where the creative mind, and if you're stuck, like ChatGPT is your friend. ChatGPT is your friend. Give me 40 ideas for how to share this recent logo design project that I did. and spin off of that. You never know,
Hmm.
like, but you want your audience to follow their own genuine curiosity about what you offer. And if they just come to your page and it's a dead end because it's like one video, then like, okay, moving on, right?
Hmm.
Oh, I was hoping there would be more here. That's what you want them to want, is that you
Yeah.
want them to want more. So leaving those breadcrumbs is always a good idea.
And you had kind of talked a little bit about Instagram and all of that. How do things kind of vary for you from TikTok to like Instagram if we're looking at like reels or stories? Do you, directly copy paste what you post on TikTok to, Instagram reel, or do you kind of tailor it for the specific platform?
It depends and it varies in some aspects. There's some pieces of content that's just the content. So like edits
Hmm.
from the podcast, for example. Like the only thing that we do is we stack the two guest heads on top of each other and we add the captions. So
Yeah.
it's not that it's all that complicated of an edit to not exist on both
Hmm.
places. For Instagram, I mean, Instagram's my first love. So I tend to like baby my Instagram presence a little bit more, even though I have less followers on Instagram than I do on TikTok, because there is something about the feed aesthetic and the discoverability on Instagram. The DMs on Instagram are just so much better than they are on TikTok still, unfortunately, which is
Hmm.
annoying to me. But TikTok too, I mean, with TikTok, I think what I appreciate is like the ability to spam post. And if I'm
Hmm.
just feeling it and I'm in a flow and I want to share 9 videos in a row, I can. And that doesn't feel like a faux pas. Whereas on Instagram, I feel like, okay, I've already posted 2 times today. That's good. I'll have to
Yeah.
save it for tomorrow. And sometimes I don't want to save it for tomorrow. So I think there's just to each person's personal preference in a lot of ways. But I think we always come back to our evergreen content. So we have like a series that we run with our team that's like our monthly report, which is what we're reading, eating, playing, obsessing over, and recommending and treating, right? So it's just kind of this like acronym, which was a trend that we adopted, and we just started doing it every month, even though the
Hmm.
trend has been like long over, because it's a good like personal interest piece and it sparks interesting conversation. We'll also do like consistently do a carousel that's like our happy mail, so like any text messages or emails or Basecamp notes from clients that they were super happy with the work that we did, and we'll kind of share that alongside the projects and kind of create that as carousel. So there's like pieces that we come back to. But on Instagram versus TikTok, I think that the Instagram, it's where my clients are most active. Even if
Hmm.
I am more active on TikTok, or even if they found me on TikTok, they're coming back to their Instagram presence as kind of the people are treating their Instagram the way that they used to treat their website, which
Hmm.
is you used to find someone on Instagram, go to their website to see if they're legit. Now you find someone's website, you go to their Instagram to see if they're legit. So I still think
Hmm.
it's worth it to have a consistent presence on Instagram, even if the engagement is in the shitter. But for growth, TikTok, I mean, far and away, far and away.
No, I definitely think that's great. And I do think it's important to like not kind of curb your creative juices. Like if you're feeling really
Yeah,
good, having somewhere like TikTok is a great place to just be like, no, I'm going to put
right,
9 videos out today. I'm going to put 5 videos out
right.
today. Like I made them and I don't want to wait and I'm going to just post them. Like I think that's a great place because they do kind of get like, you post on Instagram and you're like, I don't know if it's even going to show up in the feed. Like if I post 5, maybe only one shows up, but then no one's going to see these. And then it feels like wasted content, or like it's going to be the only thing on their feed. And then they're going to get annoyed with me and they're going to unfollow. Like there is a lot of variability when it comes to TikTok where you can do that. And it's not necessarily as, it doesn't feel as weird, as frowned upon as it might on other social media platforms. So I
Right.
think that's kind of great advice to go off of there.
Yeah, Instagram and TikTok, I mean, the reality is like Instagram engagement is down for everyone.
Hmm.
Like it's impossible. It's impossible to cut through the noise because if unless you're Jacquemus or Scaparelli or like one of the Hadid sisters, you're not getting engagement. Like it's
Hmm.
just not happening. And I think that's a universal problem. We're seeing it on our client accounts. We're seeing it on my account. Like I can't pull numbers on Reels that I used to 2 years ago. It's just
Yeah.
it's different. There's a million and five factors why that could be different. Also, my other piece of advice here would be never to put all your eggs in one social media basket. So as you start to get like, definitely if you're starting, like find the platform that you like the best, that you feel like most of your clients are on, get your groove. As soon as you start to get a groove going, you got to diversify where you're putting your content, because otherwise, like if that one source goes away,
Hmm.
you're screwed. You're screwed
Yeah.
because you just put all your time, effort, and energy into one thing. And if that basket breaks, it's done, right? So I also think that the user behavior has changed. Like I know more people that are taking a break from Instagram, deleting it from their phones, only going on it on their desktop like once a week, you know? So I think that that's changing it a bit. So there's a lot of reasons why I think engagement is down, but like no one's going to delete their LinkedIn because if they lose their job, they're going to need that. So I'm now more active on LinkedIn and like trying to hit, you know, build my YouTube presence and take on the challenge of like learning a platform that feels new, because there's a chance that there's an audience that you've never even seen before and who hasn't seen you.
Yeah, exactly. I think getting out of your comfort zone and taking those steps incrementally. Don't try and do every single platform at once, because that's just going to feel insanely difficult. But like once you have it, be like, okay, let me do this. And I think a lot of people saw the need to not have all their eggs in one basket when, you know, Instagram went down and everyone was like, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Like, I think that was a wake up call for a lot of people that were like, oh, well, maybe all of my marketing is on Instagram. And if that goes away, I don't know what I'm supposed to do for my business. So I think that's a good, you know, making sure that we are diversified in our own marketing efforts, right, to make sure that we're not relying on one single thing.
And that the connections that you're making on social that you're bringing over to email, like that can't be understated at all. Like that if you are connecting with someone or you have someone asking questions, just be like, yeah, I'd love to email you my reading list. I'd love to email you blah, blah, blah. I'd love to invite you to my Facebook group. Like find another like holding zone for these people that are kind of the warm leads. Because I think that, again, like you said, like we don't know what's going to happen to TikTok. Like it could totally get banned and shut down. So I've definitely had that thought more than once. It's like, okay, well, I got 75,000 followers there. How am I going to bring them over? But I'm not sure that all the people that were there are even on Instagram, or even on Facebook, or even on LinkedIn. So it's kind of a, you know, you got to roll with the punches in some ways, but audience is a big deal. And you want to make sure that you're getting the eyeballs of the most people that can convert to being a customer or client of yours.
Absolutely. 100%. Well, thank you so much for all of this. This was amazing. I know we haven't talked about TikTok that much, but it is like something that's can be really beneficial in your business. So thank you so much for sharing all of this. If people want to kind of connect with you or learn more about you, where can they find you in the online space?
Yeah, so I'm on literally every platform at MKW Creative Co. So that's where you'll find the stuff. I also have a podcast called the Kiss My Aesthetic Podcast, anywhere you listen to podcasts, and on YouTube. We also have a Facebook group by the same name. So the Kiss My Aesthetic Facebook group, there's about 7,000 members in there. Creatives, it's free to join, but there's a strict no self-promotion rule. So if you break the rule, you get kicked out. And I don't want to hear anybody complain about it. So that's the reason why it's been such a strong group, because if there's ever a project that my team can't take on, I send the clients there and I say, hey, I run a group, 7,000 designers, like please go post in there. And someone will be able to help you like within 24 hours. And that usually almost always comes through. So that's a great asset resource. Like I said, I started it like 7 years ago. So there's like 7 years of content to go binge in there for free. And yeah, I think that should pretty much do it. Socials, if you want to work with us, mkwcreative.co/contact. And we're taking clients for winter now. So that would be like September, October, November, December time, fall, winter. I think that's it.
Perfect. Well, we will put those links down in the description. Thank you again so much for coming on today, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
Thanks.